My name is Dr. Robert Bullard. I direct the Bullard Center for Environmental and Climate Justice at Texas Southern University in Houston, Texas. Thanks for coming out, those who are in the audience. We're in D.C. At the National Press Club for the purpose of expanding and lending support to the issue of flooding in Shiloh and Elba, Alabama, and the lack of response for addressing the damaged homes and properties. Elba, Alabama is located in southeast Alabama. It's my hometown where I grew up, and so getting justice for Shiloh is very personal for me. And so the idea that a community has to suffer for 6 years as a result of a highway that was expanded using federal tax dollars and elevated, and the drains turned on the community, and nothing was done to resolve this problem. And what we say to that is highway robbery. It's a form of transportation racism. So what we want to do is to make our message and the voices heard to the U.S. Department of Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, who has come and traveled to Shiloh, but also to ensure that before he leaves in the next few days, the unfinished business of getting justice for Shiloh and getting compensation to cover the homes that are damaged and the property that's damaged, and the community is made whole before he leaves. So now I'll introduce Pastor Timothy Williams, who is the director of the Shiloh Community Center and the leader in the Shiloh community in Elba, Alabama. Pastor Williams.
Thank you, Dr. Bullard. Once again, like Dr. Bullard said, we're here in D.C. for the final push to get justice for Shiloh. Remember when Secretary Pete Buttigieg came to Shiloh, he made promises and he told us that he was going to do this and he was going to do that. That was in April when he came, and he saw what the Shiloh community was dealing with. I was able to take him on a tour, him and his whole staff. We took him on a tour there in Shiloh, and we began to point things out. And I'll never forget, I asked Secretary Pete Buttigieg, well, I actually told him, I says, this wasn't a hoax. I mean, this is real what the people are dealing with. And his reply to me was, he says, I wanted to come to see for myself what the Shiloh community is dealing with. And I began to explain to him what we've been dealing with, what we've been under, the pressure, the stress, the mental stress, what we've been dealing with for 6 years. And we don't want to go over into another administration. We want help now. I also stressed that that we didn't need a photo op, or we didn't need something you just coming just to say, hey, you came to Shiloh. You know what I'm saying? But I want you to hear the people's heart. I want you to see what they're dealing with. And every resident out their homes we went to, they were able to share their heart with Secretary Pete Buttigieg and also the head person over at FHWA and Assistant Christopher Coles. They were able to see the injustice that the Shiloh has been dealing with for 6 years. It shouldn't take no third administration to deal with this. Secretary Pete and them have 7 days, and then the administration is out. They're gone. And we came to D.C. for last push to say, hey, Secretary Pete Buttigieg, do what you promised the Shiloh community. Because the citizens in Shiloh, they've been misled. Even with our lives after lives after lives, and the people's trust level has dropped. Some are saying, I want to see it before, I believe it, and And that's sad, you know. When Secretary Pete came, they had high hopes that he was going to do what he said he was going to do, but he failed the people. I know over in October we got a VRA, and it only covered just the highway and the flooding. It does not address the homes that are messed up. The foundation is gone. Anytime a foundation is gone, the house is destroyed. I mean, there's no way you can fix the home. We've had contractors and we've had insurance. They took the insurance from us. They said because AlDOT created the problem. We went from flat land to a bowl situation where water was forced in onto us. Nobody asked for this, but they put us in it, and they destroyed our homes, they destroyed our livelihood. You can't even plant anymore. We had gardens. My kids, I would get out there with my kids, and some of you seen probably some of the video footage and pictures. We would get out there and I would teach them because it was passed down to me. You know what I'm saying? You need a garden. You need to have some type of source to grow your own vegetables and your food, because what if something happened one day and you can't go to the grocery store and buy? You know, that's what was taught to me, because it was passed down from generation to generation. You talk about generational wealth, that's what was passed down in the Shiloh community. And land has been in our family since the Reconstruction. I mean, they would tell me stories about Shiloh. One of my cousins, at my auntie house, they used to sell eggs, they sold cows, they sold meat. People would come from far and near, would come to Shiloh and buy their products there in Shiloh. That means a lot, you know what I'm saying? And we had all the farms, and you know, my family was big in farming and, you know, raising chickens and goats and all that stuff. And it happened right there in Shiloh. Shiloh is just not a just ordinary place, but it's a historical place. Has helped a lot of people all over Southeast Alabama. And so we're saying, Pete, you know, make it right, because we're not giving up our property. And that's what they want. They want to push us out, and we go away and they not do anything. And that's what they're saying, go away and shut up. But we will not shut up, but we're going to continue to fight. And I'm just believing that God would touch Pete's heart while we're here, that we will make enough noise that would disturb the USDOT, that they would do what they would have to do. It's not over, y'all. You know what I'm saying? And they've got time to do what is right for Shiloh, because people are suffering. The longer they put us on hold, things are getting worse and worse. And I'm telling you, we don't want to die. We were told house can collapse. And I've been losing sleep. I can't sleep. 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm home. Well, asked me while I was here in DC. He said, did you sleep? I didn't sleep. And this can't keep going on. I'm gonna be a wreck. I don't get 8 hours, but I'm concerned about my family. And this is wrong. And that's why we're here. And so we're just asking Secretary Pete to do what is right. You know, it's crazy, man. You know, you don't hear about this. And I'm not a racist or anything. I work with everybody. You know what I'm saying? In the Caucasian community, they help the people. The lady down the street, they helped her. She didn't have to go this long. We done lost everything. Oh God. My business, you know, things were going normal. You know, I just landed a deal for $1.5 million for my cleaning company. We came up from a mom and pop business. You know, had my kids employed. We were doing great. But the time I stepped up and began to talk about Shiloh and began to push this thing, I lost it. They took everything. And by the grace of God, I'm still here. We're still making it. We ain't never been like this. We ain't never been down. You know, we were a middle class family, you know, doing good and had high hopes. And you know, I was told that once you start talking in Alabama, they don't hang you anymore. They kill your finances, and that's what they did. The day of Secretary Pete Buttigieg coming to Shiloh, churches started pulling their contracts away from us. And it's been rough. But I maintain the faith and I keep fighting for the community. You know, it's not easy. You know, you got people walking away, giving up because they've given up on hope that something's going to be done. I keep telling them something is going to get done. You know, we're believing in God that He's going to move in miraculous. You know, that's all we got is faith. And this is a faith movement. This is a God movement. It ain't about me, but it's about God. You know what I'm saying? And we're believing God that He's going to shake this place up. You know, He's going to move. Was at Dr. Jamal's church, and I'm closing on this note. It was ironic that he came up and he preached about binding and loosing. Binding and loosing. And I said, when we get to DC, we're going to bind and we're going to loose. We believe in God that He's going to send victory to the Shiloh community. Thank you, Mom. And now you're in the hands of Ben Jealous.
You heard the pastor talk about faith. Faith, we're taught, is the essence of things hoped for and the evidence of things unseen. And this is a movement, like all our movements, built on faith, the faith that ultimately the universe is all, the arc of the moral universe is long, and we can come together, bend it towards justice. Shiloh community has been betrayed by the Alabama Department of Transportation. And that work was funded under the first Trump administration. And yet the Biden administration, which has been, generally speaking, great champions for the environment, environmental justice, made a promise to make it right. Secretary Buttigieg himself visited this community and promised to make them whole. And essentially what has happened since that promise was made was the U.S. Department of Transportation has said, well, build pipes under the community so that we can stop the flooding. And when people have been flooded for 6 years, putting pipes under them now helps prevent future harm, but it does nothing. It does nothing to actually right the wrongs that already have been done, to heal the trauma that already has been created, to alleviate the suffering. Children, parents, family members have been subjected to. And when they were at Reverend Dr. Jamal Bryant's church, the 4th largest African American church in the country, this past weekend, no doubt their story resonated because the black community, from the end of the Great Depression until the end of the Cold War, the only question is, in a given year, did we lose 500 acres a day or 1,000? That meant literally hundreds, if not thousands, of Shilohs. Post-Civil War, freedom communities disappeared. And of course, that rate only slowed down in the 90s because there wasn't that much left to lose. And yet, Shiloh is a reminder that there still is a lot to lose. This is a community that has stood together through the wars, through the Great Depression, through the Great Recession, through segregation. Now is at real risk of being wiped off the map, quite literally, by the U.S. Department of Transportation funding the Alabama Department of Transportation to turn this old, proud community into a drainage ditch. And it's hard to stand there and look at the damage that's been done and not feel like for somebody this was intentional. That somebody felt like they could just flood these people and not treat them like humans, somehow like a nuisance. And this community is beautiful. It is literally a shining city on a hill. It's a dozen or so households, 13, 14, 2 NFL players, including the current one, and the one who's still living is retired and celebrating. Multiple military vets, religious leaders, multiple business leaders, all in a little community that's held together since the wake of the Civil War. Sierra Club, we have been frustrated by how hard it is for this community to get justice. We are committed, and we remain committed to helping them do that. Any of us who have organized in the Deep South know that Alabama is special. Alabama, back in the day, declared the NAACP to be a terrorist organization, outlawed it in a way that not even Mississippi could. And yet, what history has taught us, what Dr. King taught us as we approach Martin Luther King Day, is that even Alabama can be brought to justice. Even Alabama can be forced to do justice. And that is our commitment in this case. Unless there's anybody who thinks the Biden administration has stopped working, that's not the case. They will work right to the last day. So there is, in fact, time for Pete Buttigieg, even though this is the last week, to get this fixed. Unless anybody thinks that somehow Biden leaving office will let the Department of Transportation off the hook, let us assure them that is not the case. After all, it was the Department of Transportation under President Trump 6 years ago who made the terrible set of decisions to support the Alabama Department of Transportation in this injustice. And so we will continue to stand with Shiloh. Our resolve, honestly, is only hardened by the resistance that we're getting from the state and the impartial and ultimately incomplete actions by the U.S. Department of Transportation. And like Pastor Williams and like Dr. Billard, we have faith that we will win in the end. You saw how much it impacted Pastor Williams, and he is a strong man, one of the strongest I know. And if it impacts him this deeply, you can only imagine how it is impacting everyone in the Shiloh community, the children, the elders, everybody. And so I want to thank Pastor Williams for his strength and his determination. I'm sure you were right there with you. I want to thank Dr. Bullard for his leadership. He has been a beacon in the environmental movement and in our nation, and an architect of the environmental justice movement for decades. It's an honor to stand with both of you and with this community, and we will win in the end because we are willing to fight until the end. God bless Shiloh. Go fight.
Thank you very much. Let me just put a explanation point on this. We didn't come here begging. The Shiloh homeowners, they're taxpayers. That highway that was widened, elevated, built with tax dollars. The Inflation Reduction Act, bipartisan infrastructure law, and other laws that would mandate and require that all communities are treated equally apply. And so the message that we bring from the Bullard Center, which we will give full support throughout this struggle until we get justice for Shiloh. Hashtag justice for Shiloh. This is personal for me. I didn't read a book about Shiloh. I didn't watch a video about Shiloh. I used to go out in Shiloh. I had classmates in Shiloh. I know Shiloh. It was flat. A lot of farmland. It did not flood. So the problem that was created is artificial, but the solution has to be real and it has to be forthcoming. We traveled to Cleveland, Ohio last month and listened to Secretary Pete tout the important accomplishments of the Biden administration and the infrastructure law. 77,000 projects. I forget how many billions of dollars that have been spent on great projects. A lot of them, infrastructure, roads, bridges, highways, water treatment systems. And so what we're asking Secretary Pete, if there's 73,000 great projects, let's make it 73,001 great projects. We're not talking about a project that will bust the budget. We're talking about something that can be done easily. The voluntary resolution agreement that Federal Highway Administration and USDOT agreed upon for the Alabama Department of Transportation to correct the drainage system, the stormwater system that currently pushes water into the Shiloh community. And technically, no water is supposed to come off the right-of-way. But if your community is flooding, we know that's not happening. This flawed highway was flawed from the beginning. The USDOT is requiring the Alabama Department of Transportation to fix this flawed problem, but we don't understand why they stopped short of requiring the entity that built the highway, that caused the flooding, and the flooding is causing the damaged homes. We're not just talking about small infrastructure, small damages to homes. Pastor Williams' home is sinking into the mud. It's sunk almost a foot. His roof is cracking. His roof is leaking. And when your roof leaks, and when the water goes into your attic, and when it's damp, that dampness creates mold. It's not healthy. So it's an infrastructure problem, it's also a health problem. And he's had his house remediated 6 months ago, the mold is back. So when we talk about this problem needs to be resolved quickly because mold is unhealthy. This is such a tragic story. And the tragedy is it could have been resolved six years ago. And now we got 6 days. It still can be resolved. We're asking Secretary Pete to come back to DC from Michigan or wherever he is and do the right thing. And don't let his legacy be, in terms of Shiloh, that he let black people drown and their homes sink into the red Alabama mud. That will be his legacy if he does not respond to this call, this appeal, this last-ditch effort to get justice for Shiloh. It's just plain and simple. This is not rocket science. You don't need to have an engineering degree or a PhD to understand this. It's plain and simple. Come back, find the resources, get a binding agreement and commitment, just like you did with LDOT to fix the highway. Get the same thing to require LDOT to, and the monies, find the monies to fix and make whole these homes, these properties, like my family. 1875, 10 years out of slavery, acquired 240 acres of timberland. That's still in our family. And we use that land selling trees every 6-7 years to send everybody in my family to college. No Pell Grants, no student loan. Understand that land is valuable. And nobody, no agency should destroy what was earned. It wasn't given to them. This is inherited wealth, inherited property. So that's what we were fighting for. That's why we were in Washington, D.C., demanding justice for Shiloh. Thank you very much.
Hear, hear.
We'll open to questions.
Dr. Bullitt and Reverend Tim, how much will it cost to restore and make whole the folks in Shiloh? How much to restore their property, to make it whole, to fix the water retention issues? How much overall will it cost?
Well, let me just say this. The voluntary resolution agreement, that's already funded. So fixing the highway they've already negotiated that amount. I haven't seen the dollar amount, But we're talking about now 13 properties, homes. We don't have a ballpark figure, but 13 homes and families and making them whole and calculate the median price of a house these days, you could come up with a ballpark figure easily, multiplying 13 times whatever the average median house in that area is, whether it's 250, 250,000, 300,000. We're not talking breaking the bank. It's more than just the money. To restore the land and to restore the balance that's there, and to make sure that you're not just talking about the houses restored, you're talking about the land restored. Just like he said, he can't even grow a garden because when it rains, his septic system overflows and you have raw sewage running into yards. We are talking about doing the right thing and making it right, and don't go on the cheap.
Yeah.
Don't go on the cheap.
Hey, and excuse me, I didn't mention, and that's why I'm so, I told you I get up at 2 o'clock. There's a gas line that's right behind the house. Less than 10 feet. If the house hit it, we're all gonna be dead. The whole community is gonna blow up. And sometimes I sit back and I think that's probably what they want, is that, you know, we ain't going nowhere, so they just want just to blow up. That's why they're taking the time and they don't want to address the issue, and it's sad, though. But, you know, we had, I believe it was in 2023, just before 2024, New Year's Eve, we had a gas leak. Had not I got up and did my routine walk with my wife in the community, ain't no telling what would have happened. Someone could have came out there, it blew a valve off, and it would just, you could smell the gas fumes all over the place. And had our cousin Daniel went out and lit a cigarette, God knows what would have happened to the community. And so that's why this is an urgent cry. This is an emergency. When I sent a letter to Secretary Pete Buttigieg, and I told them, God forbid, if the house collapse or if the community blow up, this is going to be on your hands. The blood is on your hand because you came there. You're liable. When you came and you saw what was going on, you're liable for what happens to that Shiloh community. That's why I said I don't want to die. You know what I'm saying? Over ignorance. You know what I'm saying? We don't never know. We hear the house popping, y'all. When you hear the rappers, they just be popping. You hear the popping in the kitchen, popping in the living room. When we did this thing with Pete Buttigieg, your partner, what's his name? Dr. Wright. She was sitting in my living room. And she heard that pop. She said, what is that? I said, the house sinking. You can hear the rafters popping. And there's a ditch in the roof. You know what I'm saying? Where this thing is going toward that gas line. And any day now. Can you imagine that? And I asked him, do you go home living like that? We ain't fearful, we trust God. But when you're in a situation that can be handled, you know what I'm saying? And your children, this bother my children, and when and in the back rooms, they have to sleep in the living room because the cold air is coming up through the floor. Because the house is sinking. That's unheard of. We have to live in these conditions, you know what I'm saying? It took all my monies that I had to do what we had to do, you know, to save the community. And so, yeah, and the insurance, they ain't gonna take care of nothing. Everything is gone. We don't have no insurance, nothing. And that's wrong, you know? And some of the people in the community are scared to say what, some of them got State Farm insurance just like I have. And they're scared to say anything about their problem because if they say something, they're gonna take the insurance from them. You know, that's wrong. And people living in fear, you know? And so, yes, it's not that much money to make that community whole, you know? Take care of the people because people have mental, some folks are going to see a psychiatrist. That's how bad it is, you know? And make them whole, you know? That's all, it's simple.
Do we have more questions, sir?
Doc, you had talked about this is not only an environmental problem, but it's also a health problem. We all know that has always been for a number of years the interagency working group, a number of federal agencies, and of course Pete is a part of that, Department of Transportation. What role have they played, should they have played, or how will you address these cumulative impacts that are happening in housing, transportation, HHS? Minister just also talked about the mental health problems that are going on, and we also understand that when you have transportation routes and you have this extreme flooding, all the chemicals that are coming, you know, that are leaking out cars and other things that also will then leach into. So I'm just curious about what the plan is and having a sort of a holistic a way of addressing what's going on.
Well, you know, thanks, Mustafa. It started out as USDOT taking this whole of government approach, and they assigned one person to take the lead in trying to get to the other different agencies, because it is a multifaceted problem. Like because the way the highway is elevated, when people throw trash out their cars, and when it rains, everything washes into the community. And so the community literally is becoming a lake and a dump. And all of the whatever not just debris, but all of the oil or whatever is in coming off the highway or coming through the drainage system is washing to the neighborhood. That's why I say it's not safe to grow a garden. And then the septic system is overflowing. Department of Housing and Urban Development, they were contacted, and they basically were talking community development block grant. That means it has to go through the city or the county. In terms of the rural septic systems, that was, I think, USDA and other agencies. The problem is in terms of getting the agencies to work with the community and respond in a way and give them good information in a timely manner. It seems that almost all of the little technical assistance that was being provided was not for USDOT funds, but for funds in other areas. We were able to apply for work with EPA on community change grant for Shiloh and the city of Elba and Coffee County, but you know that there are limited grants. We haven't received the rejection note, but we haven't received the approval either. So, and then there's other funds that were talked about, but no real initiative by USDOT to follow through. For example, the Reconnecting Communities grant, which was designed for communities that have been disrupted and negatively impacted by highways historically, going all the way back to, in some cases, the 40s and the 50s. And awards were made. When we found out about the grant and when they were informing us about the grant, the application deadlines either had passed or there were not making any more awards. So it's almost like the interagency whole of government approach failed because of not having a champion inside of USDOT. I know how it works. When you got somebody inside of an agency like EPA, and Mustafa, you know, that if you got somebody inside, they will take the lead and walk the papers through, and the point person for that agency, the contact person, meet and whatever. We didn't have that, and I'm not saying it was done on purpose. It's just that there are a lot of moving parts, and we didn't have a lot of time to try to get all of the pieces together. And on the health side, as I said before, the health side is that we are looking at secondary impacts when it comes to the highway, the flooding, the leaky roofs, the mold in the attics, the mold spores coming through the ducts, and the bronchitis and the ill health effects. So you can see how getting to that part is a rather a winding road, no pun intended. But it's real. The health impacts are real. And we're standing in a room with a family that is a living proof that this health emergency needs to be addressed. If I'm not mistaken, and if it's okay to divulge, that the mold company that will remediate the company that will remediate the mold in Pastor Williams' house comes out, is it Friday?
Yes, sir.
This Friday. And he's had to wait until the company is available. But if you need help, waiting can make things worse. But the company will tell him in 6 months it will be back until the real problem has to be solved. Not just the remediation of the mold, the problem has to be solved. You lose your insurance if it floods and damage to the house. He doesn't have any homeowners insurance. They cancel the insurance that he's carried for decades. He didn't need any flood insurance, and his homeowners insurance did not cover flooding because it didn't flood. This is what we're dealing with. These converging challenges that is getting worse and worse each year. And the flooding is occurring worse and worse each year. And the fact that communities like Shiloh, where you have a disproportionate number of people of color, the projections for flood is going to be higher than the regular population. The projection is within the next 25, 30 years, flood risks are going to increase by 25%. Well, for black people and people of color communities, it's not 25%, it's 40%. So we need to understand we don't need to build infrastructure that's going to increase the chances of our communities flooding worse than they would from the whole issue of climate change. All right, anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.